What's up, guys? Today we're playing Epic 7, and I'm taking you to Gear School. Now, I know when I'm playing the game, all I want to see are just the broken, mangled up bodies of my competitors at my feet, all their cute little smiles wiped off their faces. And to do that, we need to take our gear to that next level. We need to make sure that we are focusing on gear that's going to be end game, gear that we can use to destroy the competition and to have fun while we're playing Epic 7, because that's what it's all about. Now, legend players, you know, they're handsome, they're rich, they got cute girlfriends, but mostly they're lucky with their gear and they know what to roll. So that's the part that we're going to look at today. We're going to look at attacking type heroes, how to gear them up, what you should be looking for when you're enhancing gear, and how to put that all together. Stick around. This is going to be a series where we go through different type archetypes. We're going to show examples, and we're going to show you exactly what you need to be looking for when you're gearing them up. So let's get started. Equipment in Epic 7 is all about probability and possibilities. Now, one thing that I really love is that the developers of this game have published all the probabilities of that gear when you're enhancing so that you can see exactly how that might look. But as we know, anyone who's fought a Apocalypse Ravi, anyone who's tried to rely on evasion knows that probability is probably made up. 20% chance to counter, and she's going to counter 37 times in a row, and you're going to totally die. So let's go into this, but it's also with a grain of salt because we know that these numbers can be skewed. Now, the first thing that we're looking at is level 88 equipment. And let's go to our attack percent. The same will be true for attack, HP, and defense. We have a possibility of rolling a 5 to a 9%. When we're, every time we're rolling a substat from the initial roll, unless it's a fixed equipment where it always comes out the same, every time you get a piece of equipment, level 88 has a 20% chance to initially start at 5 to 9, but then every substat after that has a 1/5 probability of rolling a 5 to 9, which is really great, right? It's not skewed in either way. It does suck a little bit if it rolls into a 5 or a 6, which is a min score, but we have a 60% probability that it'll roll 7 to 9. As we move down into speed, we can see that speed has a minimum of 3 to 5, but it's basically a 50-50 chance to roll a 3 or a 4 with a very minimum 5 speed roll. The same thing is going to be for effectiveness, effect resist, and for crit damage. You have an equal opportunity to roll all of these substats in any amount. So while min rolls are horrible, at least we know that we have a much greater chance to roll a higher amount than that min roll, which gives us a great opportunity to make good gear. Now for our lower equipment, 72 to 85 will roll exactly the same. They're not really giving out this old 72 equipment anymore. Now it's 78, 80 to 85. That's what you expect from things like the side story mission and also from special events and from rewards. Now, with the level of equipment, the main stat will go up as you get into higher level equipment. Also, level 85 can be reforged and the other ones cannot. So as we go down, we can see a 4 is a minimum roll. So the other one on level 88 is a 5 to a 9. This is a 4 to an 8. So while the range is the same, that increase in substat possibility for level 88 gear is what's making up for you not being able to reforge it. Ultimately, your 85 gear is going to be a better investment, but the problem is that we never have enough reforged material to reforge every single piece of gear. So if you have level 88 and it rolls amazing, it's definitely a good piece of equipment to keep. But we have to keep in mind that we want it to roll as if it's already reforged and not the same as level 85 gear. So with attack, you have 20% probability to go into any one of the range, which is really good. Again, it's 60% probability to roll in the upper end of the range, which is fantastic. If we go down into speed, same thing. We see that on epic gear, we roll 2 to 5 with basically a 66% chance to roll a 3 or a 4 and a very small probability to roll a 5. When we get to heroic gear, we can roll a 1 with also a low probability, but you can see that 5 is now gone. So we have what's this, 60% chance to roll a 3 or a 4 on heroic, and we have a 66% chance to roll a 3 or a 4 on epic. So it's going to be a much better opportunity for you to get more speed rolling epic gear than it will heroic. Also, keep in mind that heroic gear only has 4 rolls. You roll the 3, the 6, and the 9. The 12 is a hidden stat, and then you roll the 15. So you're going to get more opportunity because you get an extra roll in epic. Even a low roll epic is probably going to be better than a high roll in heroic. That's not saying that heroic has no place, but we're putting into perspective that epic gear is really what we're shooting for so that we can make sure we're getting the most rolls and the highest rolls possible, especially for speed. Has anyone seen a 5 speed? Yeah. Yeah, I have one now. I'll show it to you. It started out as a 5 speed and it's random gear. It can happen. I've also seen this in the crafting event. It is there, but look at this. A third of a percent. Super low, super low, super low. Don't expect it. Expect a 4. And if you get a 5, well, that's your lucky day. So now that we've looked at the probability of each substat and how it can roll into each of our pieces of gear, let's now look at how we can score our gear that we can see and what we're looking for each kind of hero that we're going to try and build. Now, this scoring system has been around a long time. It's been on Reddit. I did not make it up, but what I did is I organized it in a way that we can sort of talk through it and we can visualize how that gear will work. When you have a health, defense, and attack, that has a maximum roll of 8, so we'll just consider that at a weight of 1. Speed has a majority maximum roll at +4, and we know that Epic Piece can get a +5, but really it's not heard of. So we are going to consider that at a 2 because 4 is 1/2 of 8. Now I do have a +5 piece of speed gear. It's like catching a unicorn. We're going to roll it today, so stick around for that at the end. It's going to be fun. And then critical, this has a chance to roll at a +5, so we're going to consider that 1.5. I could weight it, higher, but I think 1.5 seems to be pretty good. And so everything's going to be 1 except for these 2 items. When we're looking at gear, we want to meet the minimum thresholds for gear. So heroic, that's going to be like your level 85 fuchsia pinkish gear. You see 3 substats showing. The 4th substat will appear at a +12, and then the +15 can roll into anything that's showing at that time. The epic piece of gear, that's going to be the red gear. That's going to be gear that has all the substats showing, and this is really what we're aiming for, and once you get to end game, this is pretty much all you roll. Level 88 gear has historically been really awful. But what they did in 2022 is they went and they upgraded the substat probability to roll on level 88 gear because now we have reforging. There's no reason to get level 88 gear if it's going to roll so much worse than 85. So what we see after reforging is about an 11% increase. So when we're looking at that, we're going to think that we're going to grade it based on if it's already reforged. So 11% greater than your epic piece of gear, and level 88 can only appear in epic. You don't get any like fuchsia pinkish colors. You should see all substats showing on your 88 gear. We're looking for average rolls. In any stat, we want at least a 6. For speed, we want a 3 or a 4 on average. Crit chance, we want a 4. 3 is okay, but I'd rather have a 4. And crit damage, we'd rather have a 6. You're most likely going to get a 5. So let's talk about how this works. Let's say that I have a piece of gear starting, and we are going to start with a heroic piece of gear. We start with a 3 speed. We start with a 6 onto defense and a 7 onto health. That gives us plus 19. So as you can see, an 8 is the highest here, and we're in the upper range of getting to a maximum roll. We're going to consider 4 to be the highest, so we're in the upper range of the speed roll to also be at a plus 3. Before you even start, this is what you should be looking for, a plus 19%, or if you see 4 substats showing, then a plus 6 or a 25. The difference between heroic and epic is a 6. Because you get one less roll in heroic gear, then epic is always going to be one roll better, right? So consider it this way. A mid to low roll epic gear is going to be on average equal to or better than a high roll heroic gear. So we always want to aim for epic. But if you roll heroic because you're seeing that you have 3 substats showing that are good and they're high rolls, then I think it's still worth it to go for, especially when you're starting out, because this can roll really well. If we were going into an epic piece of gear, then we might want to see something else. Like let's say that we wanted to see a 6 into effect resist. This is going to be a perfect piece of gear when you're rolling into a knight or soul weaver, a debuffer, or even a bruiser. On a debuffer, you're probably going to want a 6 in effectiveness instead of effect resist, but they're interchangeable. You'll just adapt who you're playing it to. So let's pretend we're rolling this piece of gear. So when we're looking at a knight or a soul weaver, we want a 6 average, right? So let's say that a plus 3, this rolls a plus 6. Now we're at our 31 that we wanted. Then we roll a next into plus 6 into health, and that gives a 13 gear score. We want a 37, and we have our 37. Then on our plus 9 roll, we roll into a plus 3 speed. That gives us a 43, and we have a 43. Now we have 2 rolls left. So if this is a heroic piece of gear and you have 3 showing at a plus 9, that's going to be a 37 and we're right on track. So we're always looking for 6 difference here because we don't know what that plus 12 is going to show when we get into heroic piece of gear. Let's go ahead and we're going to say that we have an epic piece. Now at plus 12, it rolls into effectiveness and we get a 12. And then let's say it rolls a plus 3 again and we get a 9 at plus 15. And that gives us our 55 gear score. Now, if it rolls effectiveness, this is going to be somebody that has a debuff, somebody that you want to land critical debuffing abilities onto the enemy. Something like Angel of Light, something like a Dizzy, something like Solitaria of the Snow. You know, there's a whole bunch of these heroes where if we have a plus 9, that's going to roll at 11 speed. We rolled a one time in each one of these. That gives us a plus 3. So now we're at 15, 16, and we're at 15. At 11 speed, you're going to easily hit 240, 250, maybe even 260, depending on the base speed of the hero. So it's really great. And let's look at that. So if we're looking at a speed roll and we want to roll 250 and we're starting at 115, at a plus 12, we're going to hit 250 with speed set and speed boots. So you can see how this is a very good piece of gear because it rolled mid speed and it rolled really great into a lot of our gear. And we'll go back to that speed calculator in a little bit. So as we're going through and we're looking at knights and soul weavers, we want to make sure that between our health, our defense, and our effect resist, that we roll 3 times. It doesn't matter which one, as long as we have 3 rolls into each one of these pieces of gear. And then we want to roll at least 1 time into speed, but if you don't roll into speed at all, it's not a big deal because there's plenty of soul weavers that I run at 200 speed and it's very easy. If you have a soul weaver and let's say they're at 110 and you want 200 speed,
With speed set speed boots, you only need a 4 speed, which means you didn't even roll into it, right? You just started with 4 speed. So don't think that you didn't roll into speed that it's garbage. This can be an amazing Doris. It can be an amazing Crow. Heroes that you don't want to be super fast because you want the enemy to go first. That way you can heal, you can apply debuffs, or you can horse them right in the face. So this is a very good amount. So when we're looking at knights and soul weavers, between health and defense, what we want here is we typically want a 3. And then we want one roll into effect resist, and then one roll into speed. If it doesn't roll speed and it rolls into the others, that's okay. That's okay. It's not going to matter. For the debuffers, it's going to be similar. What we want is 2 rolls into speed, probably 2 rolls into effectiveness, and then we want to get another roll. It doesn't matter where. Health, defense would be just fine. That way it gives them some defense abilities to stand up, right? So as we're looking at this, we want to make sure that we're rolling around a 40 into health, defense, and effectiveness. We want a plus 40 into our Knight and Soul Weavers. When we're looking at our debuffers, then we want something like a plus 18 combined. And then we want the rest to go into speed at an average of 3 speed roll. Now let's flip that over. And let's talk about when we're looking at attackers. If I have an attack piece of gear, we want it to start with speed, but if it doesn't, then that's okay. We also want it to start with crit chance. Almost all the attackers in Epic 7, they need to have critical chance. There are some that don't need crit, like Hua Young, who's hot but garbage, and then something like a martial artist Ken, who, is the best. He says so, so it must be true. I use him. I still use him. But he doesn't need crit chance, right? Something like Charlotte doesn't need crit chance, Fire Charlotte. But you want to start generally with crit chance. And we want to have at least one roll into it because we're never going to get to 100% crit unless we get that one roll. We also want to start with attack. Now, I understand that there are HP based heroes, there are defense based heroes, and you want to start with their defensive stat. A weapon cannot roll defense, and armor cannot roll attack, so keep that in mind. If you're rolling something like a Lionheart Sirmia, she wants defense on all her pieces, but her weapon can't roll defense. So in that case, you want extra speed, extra crit chance, or extra crit damage. Now, if you roll attack and you put it on Lionheart Sirmia, you're like, oh man, it's a waste of stat. It's not. Attack increases the damage of every hero in the game. Doesn't matter if their damage increases based on speed, based on HP, based on defense, or if they're a soul weaver or a knight. Extra attack will give them more damage. So don't think it's a wasted roll, but don't try and roll into an attack if you're going to use it on those heroes, right? Let's remove this. So let's say that we have an attack-based hero and we're looking for attack, crit chance, speed, and the last one can be crit damage. It can be into defense. It can be into anything. So right now, we need to have a 1, 7, a 6, a 3 in a speed, and a 4 in crit chance, right? That gives us our 25. So let's say that it rolls again. Our plus 3 roll gives us a 13. And then we get a 4 at plus 6. So now we're at 37, which is right where we want to be. Then it rolls again, and we get 18 at our plus 9, and it's pretty close. If it's within 1 or 2%, I think you're still pretty good. Now, this could roll an 8, but I'm just imagining it's rolling a 6. Then, let's say that it rolls into defense, and we get a plus 12, and then at plus 15, it rolls in speed, and we have a 6. 54, which is right on track, 55. When this reforges, this will reforge into a 15 defense. It will reforge into a 22 onto attack. It will get a 7 onto speed and we'll get a 10 or 11 into crit chance. So this is really good. At 11 crit chance, you have a great opportunity to now get to 100% crit. Also, with 7 speed on every piece, with speed boots, you have a chance to get to 240. So let's say that we have let's say it's like a Briar Witch's area, and we want her to be 240 speed. She has a 115 base, so with speed set speed boots, you only need 10 speed per piece, which means that you rolled, pretty good. You need 2 rolls into speed. So if we were going to go with something, this is probably something around like 220, maybe even 230, about 230. All your pieces roll 7, 8. Now you're at 230 speed, which is going to be amazing, right? It's really great. So when we have attackers, between your attack and your crit damage, we want to have a minimum of 3 rolls. We want to have at least 1 roll into crit chance, and then if we can, 1 roll into speed. If it doesn't roll into speed, then we want it to roll into another stat that's very helpful, like attack, defense, something that's helpful. Probably not effect resist, maybe even effectiveness if they have debuffs. When we're looking at a combined total here, we want to have I don't know, did I spell that right? I did spell it. Maybe I spelled it right. I don't know. We want to have at least 30 into attack and into crit damage. We also want an 8 into a CR. Okay, so this is going to give us a great chance. Now at this point, if we don't roll into speed, then that's perfectly fine. Don't forget, we can hit 200 speed very easily. I run like Celine at 185 speed, and she does great because she has a CR boost. You could also run something like an Edward at 185 speed, and he's going to be just fine if you don't roll into speed. What you would want is a stat that works well with that hero that I rolled into. You could also, even if you don't meet the speed thresholds, or if you don't meet the percent thresholds without speed, then we can still roll a great piece of gear, right? Let's say that it has a 4 into crit chance, a 6 into crit damage, and then it rolls a 7 into attack, and then let's say it just rolls into a flat defense, right? Just a flat defense. We can still have a really good piece if we can avoid the flat stat. So at this point, we're at 19, even though we want a 25. So our very first roll, we get a +8 into crit chance. Now we're at 25. Then we get a +6. And then let's say we roll 2 more times into attack. At +12, we're at 49. If I did not roll into that flat defense, I'm going to go to +15. And here's why. Let's say that at +15, it rolls into something else. I don't know, let's say it just rolls into attack, and that gives us a 27. Now I can mod that flat defense. I can put it into speed, gives me a 3, and now we're at 57. So don't think that just because we have a threshold that this is going to be, the all-encompassing scoring system. This was developed before we had modification gems. So if I see 3 things that work well, attack, crit chance, crit damage, even if that last piece is going to be flat or it's going to be health or whatever, and I want speed, I can still roll it. And if it avoids that undesirable stat, if it avoids, like, let's say it's effect resist, because, whatever, we can modify that into something else. Here's what I don't want to modify. I don't want to modify crit chance. Because I need to have at least an 8 to reforge into 10 and to make sure that we're getting 100% crit chance, that I need to have crit chance on these attacker based gear. And we can see that down below. This is Straz. So let's say that I roll a 10% into all of his items for crit chance, right? I'm totally on the wrong stat here. Here we go. 10. And we're just going to drag this across. If I roll 10 into everything, that's only 83. I'll still need to have a crit chance set to get close to 100. Some of these will have to be like 11 or 12. So you need to have at least one roll, or sometimes two rolls, to get to that 100% crit chance. So you absolutely need to have crit chance on your gear. Now, when we look at bruisers by definition are going to have defensive-based stats. Let's say a Fire Charlotte. A Fire Charlotte needs high attack, defense, HP, high crit damage, and then probably some effect resist, so she doesn't get stripped because she has, the AoE on her S1 when she has buffs. So you don't really need speed, you don't really need crit chance. So you want to roll some of everything. Well, I guess you don't need effectiveness either. But you want to roll pretty much some of all the rest of the stats in order to build a good Fire Charlotte. But your gear can only have a maximum of 4 subs. So you need to develop a very good balance of what you're going to be using between these. You want some gear that has attack, defense, HP. You might want to have some gear that has crit damage, attack, HP, and just mix it up. Then what we're going to do is we're going to use either speed boots to bring her up to about 275, 280 speed, or we're going to double down on that bruiser gear. Like let's say it has, counter, and then we're going to, beef up one stat of our choice. In this case, you probably want to have really high attack, so then you would just use attack boots, and that would make up for it. So ultimately, you want to have a combination of these things. If you're going for a bruiser that is attack based, then you want to have a combination of 40 on that attack. That will give you your minimum attack values, and then you want to make up for it with your bruiser elements in either your boots or in your off stat. So that's going to be very important developing your bruiser gear. If you stick to a 6 average on your stats and on your crit damage, and then if this is a bruiser that's a little bit faster, 3 and 4, then you're going to roll great. The difference is putting together those little pieces to meet minimum thresholds. When I'm developing a bruiser type hero, I want to have something like 1300 defense. I probably want to have something like 15 or 16,000 HP, and I probably want something like 3,000 attack, and then the rest is going to go into crit if they need it, and then the crit damage to meet those minimum thresholds. Bruisers, in my opinion, are harder to build because you have to focus. You don't focus on a very narrow array. You have to focus on such a large array to meet so many different stats that bruisers, in my opinion, are much harder to hit. But stick to the average rolls and you're going to be good. Now let's go briefly into speed. Let's say that I wanted a 300 speed ram. Okay. Now he has something like a 129 base speed. Speed set is 25%, so that'll give you about 32. Speed boots is 45, so you're going to need 19 speed on every piece of gear. That's going to be like 4 speed rolls, okay? If you start with a 4, and then your plus 3 is a 4, and then you get a 3 and a 3 on your plus 6 and plus 9, then now we're going to be at something like a 14. When this reforges, it's going to reforge into a 17. So we need to have another 3 here to get 17, and that'll reforge into a 20. Well, this one will reforge into a 21. So 4 rolls. If you're building a Ran, you need to have, an attack, crit chance, crit damage, and speed, and then roll 4 times into speed. It's not easy to do. But let's say that you wanted to build something like a Zahak. A Zahak has something like 119 base speed. So to get to 260, you only need a 13, which means that we can now back this up. If you roll into it 2 times, that gives you an 11, and that'll reforward into a 13, and the rest will go into damage. Now, there's other heroes too that you can use that are going to be a little bit slower. If you wanted to roll into like a 240 and you have a 115 base speed, we only need 10. This first video can be a little overwhelming. This is where we're looking at laying the foundation for how we're going to be judging our gear and looking at how we can improve in our future videos to make sure that we're developing the heroes that we want. Now, I promised you a 5 speed, and I have it right here, and we're going to roll it. This is a piece of Drake armor. You get this just from Wyvern, 5 speed. I've seen it before, but I saved this one just so I can show it to you. Now, when we're looking at this type of gear, we have a 6 into defense, and a 4 into effect resist, and a 4 into crit damage. So this gives us a 14. Now, the speed is 5, that's 10, so that's going to give us a 24. So now we're right at that 25 mark, but a 5 speed, I mean, I just have to roll it. So what are we looking at here? If we avoid crit damage, then now we can roll at modification into health, and this can be a good piece of gear for, a fast Soul Weaver, a fast Knight, something like that. If we avoid the resistance and we get some crit damage, I can mod that into like a crit chance, and now we can use that on an attack-based hero. You cannot get attack onto a chest plate. Don't do it. Don't try. It's never going to happen. It's not possible. You also cannot get flat attack. So that's also a good thing, right? I don't want to roll any more flat. So when we roll this gear, that's exactly what we're looking for. I mean, obviously we're going to get like penta roll into speed, and they're all going to be really high rolls, right? That's exactly what's going to happen. Sorry, spoiler alert. That's what's going to happen. So let's go ahead. We're going to roll this and let's see how it works. First roll coming up, +3. And we rolled a 7 into effect resist. So this is great. What we want to do is we want to now avoid crit damage. So let's go in and we are going to roll the next one. +6. And we got crit damage. Yay! That's great. Now, when we modify this, we can get up to an 11 when we roll this into health. So it's not lost. It's a low roll into crit damage. Now we want to try and avoid crit damage. We're gonna, is it gonna happen? Probably not, right? Probably not. Let's see it again. Come on, Smilegate. This is your chance. This is your chance. Okay. That was good, right? A 6? That's a 6. Okay, so where are we at on the gear score? We have a 17, and 6 makes 23. We'll consider this a 9 because that's probably what we're going to get if we re-roll into a health anyway. So now we're at 32, I think. 42. So I want to be at 43 when I get to a +9 to make sure that I have quality gear. Let's keep going. Man, it's not going to happen, is it? Why are my dreams crushed? Oh, man, this was your chance. This was your chance. And that... that's still good. It's still good. We're still right on track. We're at 42. We got, looks like a +6 or a 5. And so that puts us right at almost 50. It's a pretty good piece of gear. This is going to be something that you want to roll and put it on a Knight, on a Soul Weaver. It did not roll into any speed. So we want that to be someone who's going to be around about 200 speed. If I stack 4 speed on every piece of gear, speed set, speed boots, that's 200, right? So that's good. Our very first 5 piece of gear, 5 speed roll, and it avoided speed all the way. Yay. I don't know if you know. I don't know if it's coming across. I'm not happy about this. But it's not a bad piece of gear, right? It's not a bad piece of gear. That was awful. Whatever you don't want it to go into, guaranteed that's what's going to happen. Ah, man. Jerks. Jerks. So here we go, 10 to 14. That's not, it's good. Unfortunately, it went into this crit damage. We would have liked it to see it go into defense with a good roll, but anytime you don't want it to go into something, Smilegate's going to be like, you know what? That guy needs exactly what he doesn't want. Like, he doesn't know what he wants. He says no crit damage. Let's give him crit damage. That'll brighten his day, right? Oh, what a bunch of jerks. And we get a 13. So not too bad at all. This is where the modification gems really come into play. Now let's talk about what this is going to reforge into. We had 0 rolls into speed, so we get no reforging. If I got 1 roll into speed, I would get a +1. And health, defense, effectiveness, all that, if you get no rolls, you'll get a +1. So if you get 1 roll into it, you'll get a +1 plus another 2, so you'll get a 3. And then you get +1 for everyone after that. So I rolled twice into health, which gives me a +4. I rolled into this 3 times, which gives me a +5. So that's exactly how it works, right? I think +5 is a max that you can get when you're rolling into this. Even if it's like a penta roll, you're still going to get +5. But this gear score, really not bad. We have 23. You know what? No, let's just count it out. I was going to pull up in the spreadsheet. We don't need that. 23 into effect resist, plus a 13 that gives us 46, 56. Wait, is that right? 36, 46, 52. We wanted to be at 55. We got some low rolls. They gave me 5 speed. This is like how they stick it to you. Like, oh man, you're so lucky you got 5 speed. Now we're gonna give you all garbage. But it still is gonna roll out to a really great piece of gear, a gear that so many people can use, and a gear that I will be able to find someone to put it on. And we're gonna go over how we can utilize a piece of gear like this in the future when we're looking at that archetype. I hope you guys like this video. In our next videos, we're going to be going into different kinds of attackers, knights, soul weavers, debuffers, buffers. It's going to be awesome. We're going to do a whole series. Thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, happy hunting and good luck on your battles.